Chapter 2 Tutorials or Writing to Teach. في هذا الشابتر رايحين نحكي عن التوتوريالز واللي هي واحد من انواع الدوكيومنتس اللي ذكرناهم بالشابتر الاول اللي هم التوتوريالز الريفرنسز والبروسيجرز. هذا الشابتر بوفر لنا examples guidelines that are needed in order to be able to design a task oriented tutorial. Writing to teach tutorials. The purpose of a tutorial is to accommodate the information to the needs of the user. This kind of manual is associated with novice, intermediate, or advanced learner. معناته بنستفيد من هون انه البيربوس من او الغايه من هذا التايب اوف دوكيومنتس انه حتى نحاول نخلي السوفت وير يتلائم او اكوموديت مع الاحتياجات اليوزر. هذا غالبا او من الشائع انه هذا التايب اوف يوزر يستخدم للنوفيس او البيجنر يوزرز، بينما يمكن استخدامه بواسطه الانترميديت والادفانسد ليرنرز او يوزرز حتى يعطي كويك reference or quick guidance على a new software. For example, if we have a new software and we want to introduce it, we can use always a tutorials. The tutorial assumes that the user progress in skills and confidence with the program. So we start with simple to more complex and more complex. This is how it will be designed. In order to design أو حتى نقدر نعمل design للdocument type tutorial, the tutorial document requires a design of text and graphical information that support a highly focused lesson. التوتوريال غالبا بتكون من مجموعة من الموديولز أو lessons، وهدول الموديولز أو lessons حتى نقدر نعملهم representation or design بنستخدم either text or graphical information or images. واحد من الأنواع التوتوريالز اللي ممكن نسميه الكمبيوتر توتوريال. هذا الكمبيوتر توتوريال هو عبارة عن interactive software program created as a learning tool. فهو عبارة عن software integrated within the software itself حتى يساعدنا على إنه to understand and know what we are doing أو إيش طبيعة التاسك اللي إحنا قاعدين بنعملهم perform أو بننفذهم. فالتوتوريالز هم عبارة عن step by step process that help people to learn new skills. Okay, basically من الاكزامبلز عليهم we can think about it اللي هو الويزرد. If you use any software في عندنا الويزردز when you click next, this is an example of a computer tutorial. هذول السوفتوير tutorials او الكمبيوتر tutorials sometimes بيكون فيهم testing features انه for example you might ask a user to enter a value or to check a box هتتأكد or to make sure إنه that the user comprehends the material أو the user understand what they are doing. هلهم بفهمانين البروسيس اللي بيعملوها من خلال steps أو من moving from step to step. But while some of them software tutorials they are simple walk through. ما بيحتاجوا لانك تعمل testing feature. They will just click next from step to step till they finish the whole process or tasks. Features of a document designed to software skills. معناته هذا السلايد بيعرفنا على مجموعة من الفيتشرز اللي أي document designed to teach software skills لازم يحتوي على هاي الفيتشرز. First of these features is the introduction. وزي ما حكينا من الشابتر الأول إنه any document or task oriented document لازم يحتوي على introduction اللي هي emphasize the problem solving واللي بتعرفنا على إيش طبيعة the problem that this lesson or this tutorial will help us to solve. The second thing, tutorials begin with basic functions and builds up to advance. Any tutorial starts with the simple tasks to more complex till we get to the advanced topics. الديزاين documents are organized or like document is organized by modules. والموديول هو عبارة عن topic lesson okay that helps user to identify tasks to learn. فكل موديول هو عبارة عن task. Document uses examples from the user workplace to make like the connection between document content will software features are like easy to follow. Also overview helps orient the learner to the task. غالبا any document tutorial بيحتوي على overview حتى توجه او حتى تعرف اليوزر على طبيعة التاسك that we are trying to learn. Icons help the user to see where to click and reinforces the text. هنا الايكونز غالبا ما نستخدمه حتى يعملوا support للتكست حتى to make it easy لليوزر to follow the software or to link the text that is written in the document with the software features. Explicit instructions غالبا ما نلاقي بالdocument instructions like click cancel, you do not need to create a new worksheet. هذول عبارة عن explicit instruction بحددوا ايش او بيعملوا limit لليوزر options بانه بقيدوه بمجموعة من الاوبشنز they need to follow. Graphics, images that will link the software windows or main graphics with the text that's written in the document. They are show the novice user exactly what to do. Any document usually consists of steps that keeps the user focused on one task at a time using workplace examples. If we can conclude from this, any document tutorial consists of مجموعة من features can be like set of steps تحتوي على figures على examples على images icons and introduction to show us what kind of problems we are trying to solve. Guidelines for designing tutorials. في هذا الشابتر بوفر لنا مجموعة من guidelines we need to follow in order to be able to design a task-oriented tutorial. First guideline اللي هو identify the skills, user actions you need to teach. هنا the first step إنه لازم نحدد جميع actions والskills that we are trying to include in our document and we want to teach for our user. The second thing is state objectives as real world performance. Exactly here we want to specify what will be learned. لازم نحدد ايش الاوبجكتيف من الدوكيومنت، ايش الاشياء اللي رايحين نعلمهم لليوزر او ايش الاشياء اليوزر need to learn from our software. The third guideline, choose the right type of tutorial. رايحين نتعرف later على different types of tutorials. For example عندنا guided tour، عندنا demonstration، quick start، guided exploration، instruction manual. هذول different types of tutorials رايحين نحكي عنهم ايش later this chapter. Guideline number 4 اللي هو present skills in a logical cumulative structure. ايش يعني logical هون؟ structure. A logical structure any structure follows the usage scenario. اي structure بيتبع السيناريو اللي بيستخدم اليوزر فيها السوفت وير وبنعتبره logical او cumulative structure. وممكن هذا الستراكشر يكون from simple to more complex, from beginning to end and so on. Guideline number 5 they offer a highly specific instructions. الهايلي سبيسيفيك انستراكشن هون اللي هو focus on one lesson or scenario. لما بنخلي الدوكيومنت focuses in only one scenario هنا بتكون الانستراكشن is more specific or highly specific. Allow practice and feedback at each skill level. After each skill أو after each topic لازم توضح لليوزر انه ايش الريوردز that they will gain، ايش الريوردز اللي رايحين يحصلوها from learning الدوكيومنت or from learning التوتوريال. الفاينل guidelines اللي هو test your tutorial. In this phase, we will conduct what we will say usability testing with real clients. بنحاول نعمل usability testing بحيث انه نتبع الستبس اللي شرعناهم بالشابتر الاول حتى نتاكد انه التوتوريال تبعنا written in high quality and is usable and efficient. Guideline number 1, identify user actions you need to support for your user. There has to be a thorough user analysis to help you identify what skills you need to teach. فهنا mainly لازم نحدد ايش طبيعة التاسكس اللي لازم اليوزر بيحتاجهم in their daily life، ايش which one is more essential, which one they use frequently. فin order to do that لازم يكون عندنا heavy user analysis. Okay, so this is the first step. Now after that you need to define as a document writer or as a user analysis ايش طبيعة الاكشنز والسيناريوز اللي اليوزر بيستخدمهم in their daily life. Once we done with the defining ايش الاكشن والسيناريوز, now the designer or document writer they need to define or decide ايش طبيعة skills that she want to teach to support the scenario. Now حتى نتعلم أي سيناريو في عندي skills، في عندي things I need to learn from my software حتى أقدر أقوم بالسيناريو أو الأكشن. So for example, suppose we have an accounting program وعندي two users، عندي البوك كيبر وعندي المانجر. So for example, for the bookkeeper, the most appropriate or the most essential task that they want to learn اللي هو how to post this transaction. بينما if we go to the manager, the most essential, like task or activity they need or they want to learn is how to track employees progress, how to track or to deal with all the tracking features. User actions. For each action, you will teach, list the program skills the user needs. This will help you decide on the lesson plans. For example, إنه أنا حتى أعلم أي action أو أي activity بالسوفت وير تبعتي، اليوزر بيحتاج إنه يتعلم مجموعة من السكيلز، مجموعة من الفيتشر. For example, in Excel حتى أقدر أرسم flow chart، أوكي، أو to draw a flow chart. I need to learn some kind of skills بتساعدني على إنه إيش أقوم بهذا الأكشن اللي هو drawing the flow chart. ف whatever user action the designer selects or they want to include in their document, each can only get accomplished based on how the user was able to learn a certain skills from the program. ف representing أي action بالdocument تبعتنا بواسطة الديزاينر تعتمد على كيف اليوزر أو إيش طبيعة السكيلز اللي تعلمهم إيش اليوزر from the software. Also, you need to focus on before you define user actions أو قبل ما تحدد user actions, write the objectives you want your tutorial to achieve. Why did we build this tutorial? لأنه based على objectives we can plan on the user modules or lessons. احنا إذا عرفنا إيش طبيعة objectives or what kind of purpose this document will serve, نقدر نحدد إيش lessons إيش actions that we need to include in our tutorial. Connecting program features to user actions. When selecting the program features, you can follow the following guidelines. لما بنحاول نحدد ايش طبيعة البروجرام فيتشرز اللي بدنا ندخلهم بالدوكيومنت تبعنا، ممكن نحط البروجرام فيتشرز ب 3 categories. First category features that are central to job performance. The second category اللي هو features that are essential for efficient software use. And the third category اللي هم features frequency of performance. Now, what we mean by central to job performance. Some program features will relate more directly to the user work. User may care more and want to learn more about certain features they perceive as essential to problem solving on the job. في مجموعة الفيتشرز أو الكاتيجوري اللي بنسميهم السنترال تو جوب بيرفورمانس هذول اللي هم مجموعة الفيتشرز that the user want to learn in order to be able to solve their problem in order to perform good in their job. The second category اللي هو essential for efficient software use. Now في عندي some kind of configuration, some kind of features حتى أقدر أنا استخدم الtasks حتى to solve my problems. I need to do this feature. For example, examples عليهم اللي هم security والfile management. If I cannot make my software secure, I will not be able to perform central to job performance. يعني إذا ما كان السوفتوير تبعي secure, I will not be able to do the other jobs حتى to solve my problem. Those features must be taught. Always teach the basic concept, specific to the program. The third one اللي هم frequently of performance. Some features occur frequently that you will want to teach them. هذول اللي هم مجموعة الفيتشرز اللي بتكرروا باستمرار or user uses them باستمرار. I have to teach them حتى user can benefit from them. Let the help system detect skill needs. كيف بنخلي help system هو يقدر يحدد ايش skills that we need to teach for our user. Some help programs allow the software to present the tutorial. These are called embedded tutorial. For example, لو كان عندنا drawing program, so when the user moves one object over the other for the first time, then the program can detect the opportunity for a highly specific lesson. باختصار لو أنا عندي أي برنامج drawing program وأنا حاولت إنه أستخدم object في هذا البروجرام للfirst time، فهنا software will know directly إنه this is the first time I use this object, this is the first time I use this feature. Directly they will show a lesson or a tutorial to teach me about this feature. An embedded tutorial presents a task according to some predetermined event that triggers the tutorial program. فغالبا الامبيدد tutorials بتحدد ايش something that they want to teach you about based على knowledge that you used this feature before or not. Second guideline, state objectives as real world performance. المقصود هنا the objective of the tutorial should be stated. لازم نحدد ايش purpose from the tutorial وبased عليه we will define what will be learned within this tutorial or within the guideline number 3, choosing the right type of tutorial. في عندنا 5 أنواع من التوتوريالز. الفيرست تايب اللي هو الجايدد تور. الجايدد تور focuses on the main features of the entire program. Usually people who are interested in this type are the beginning and intermediate user. فهذا بيركز على just the main features بالبروجرام، وغالبا اللي بيكونوا interested بهذا النوع من التوتوريالز هم البيجنرز والانترميديت لأنهم they want to get just a tour or just basic information about the program. The second thing or second type اللي هو demonstration. والdemonstration focuses on specific features and user actions. Usually the people who are interested are the beginning and intermediate users. Type number 3 اللي هو quick start. The quick start focuses on basic features and application. This is mainly for intermediate and advanced user. وغالبا quick start the advanced users use it to jump right into a program and start working with it. Number 4 اللي هو guided exploration. Guided exploration focuses on user actions and examples. Well, this is mainly for beginning and intermediate users. Number 5 اللي هو instructional manual. والinstructional manual useful for technically difficult software. This is for users at all levels or can be used by users at all levels. Guideline number 4, logical and cumulative structure. That means you would need to assemble the lessons in logical order and structure. That means what we mean by logical order and structure. Logical order, that means order and structure should follow a typical use scenario. حتى نقدر نوصف lessons أو topics بأنهم designed in a logical and cumulative structure لازم يكونوا based على إيش؟ على usage or typical use scenario. Example of typical use scenario, for example, the people use the software for student typing a paper, a clerk calling up a record to check for payment of a bill or etc. هاي type of examples على use scenario lesson. Now, what are the design of logical and cumulative structure designs? Beginning to advanced, simple to complex, generalized to specialized, and starting to ending a session. Examples على logical and cumulative structure design that we might use during tutorial design. Guideline number 5, highly specific instructions. That means instructions or lessons should focus on a specific scenario or problem the user would recognize. الفوكس لازم بأي lesson أو أي part of the tutorial لازم يكون على specific scenario أو problem that we want to solve. هذا بيساعد على إنه نعطي to maintain focus للusers and to reduce readers' anxiety about learning or remembering features in a new program, for example. You need to help readers maintain focus. فthis will help the user to maintain focus. من الأشياء اللي ممكن نستخدمها to help users maintain focus, we can use, for example, specific data, numbers, names, words, variables, and protocols. Also, we might use tools. For example, we can use mouse buttons, icons, check boxes, radio button, hypertext links. All these things also help to maintain focus. Screens display highlighted areas, data fields, and menu selections. Commands, for example, control commands, keyboard shortcuts, and function keys. All these things can be used to help maintain focus. Guideline number 6, give practice and feedback at each skill level. First thing, set the goals positively and try to avoid controversial jargons. That means حاول انك تتجنب اي terms اي keywords ممكن تكون جدلية او ممكن تكون ambiguous. Also, try to remind the users of the reward. حاول دائما تذكر اليوزرز or الريدرز ايش الريوردز اللي رايحين يحصلوها from this tutorial. Either understanding or try to correct their performance. Also, try to establish a feeling of goodwill. That means At the end of the topic or the lesson, you can say something like this: this is the end of the console program guided tour. Thanks for coming in, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your trip. These things will help you to give a practice at the end of the topic and give a good feedback for your. One of the important things that you need to follow is build a pattern of exposition. For example, when you try to explain something, when you try to dispose or display or show something, you use the same pattern. For example, when you want to give an action to take, you can say select open from the file menu. Or when you want to explain the result, for example, you can say the program will display an empty file. هذا استخدام باترن معين ممكن تستخدمه على طول الدوكيومنت بحيث انه you can make your own pattern. For example, in this thing, you can, when we want to explain the result, we can say the program will display an empty file. On try to show a result, حاول تظهر الريزلت, but don't give any advices. Sometimes you can give a practice and exercise by including exercises in your lesson. Pace the tutorial and test your tutorial. Now, what do we mean by pace? Pace, when you put your tutorial together, consider that you do not want to waste your user's time. That means do not stretch the lessons unnecessarily. حاول تحط lessons بطريقة مختصرة, no details, don't stretch them when it's not necessary, when there is no need for details. The second thing, test your tutorial. That means conduct usability testing before marketing your product. Now, pace means walk with slow, regular steps. How we can pace our document or tutorial? We can pace the tutorial by keep lessons down to about 10 to 12 minutes each. This will help them concentrate. Also, they may be called away during the training session to give them a chance to quit during the session without losing data and having to restart data. فحاول انك تختصر الحجم lesson as you can, 10 to 12 minutes, so they can concentrate or focus on it, and give them the chance to stop at any time and come back to finish their work. Try your tutorial. First, test it in lab. You should base your testing on the objectives of the tutorial. المقصود, when we want to test our tutorial in the lab, دائما لازم نركز على انه we have to test it بناء على objectives. When we built, like or when we designed a tutorial, وضعنا مجموعة من objectives. Now لازم نتأكد انه نعمل testing based على هاي objectives, على هاي requirement. Design the test. Also to focus on the design elements such as effectiveness of the graphic and the style of writing. فمعناته it's not enough to test first the objective. Also لازم نركز على effectiveness للgraphics. Number 2. ولازم نركز على style of writing also when we test our objective. If you do not have a real user to try to mock up the situation with someone similar background. Now it's best أو من الأفضل إنه نعمل testing using real users أو actual users. بس إذا ما لقينا أو there will not be available, بنحاول إنه to mock up. Or when we say mock up, we mean to find أو نحاول نلاقي user have the similar background as the real user. Like any documentation, tutorial should undergo through a usability test. There are variety of methods for doing so, but the most revealing information often comes from observing of an actual user making use of its in a realistic scenario. Now, الdocumentation لازم يخضع ل what we call usability testing. We can do it in different ways. لكن أفضل طريقة لعملية usable testing للdocument تبعنا when we try to watch, to see how the user work or use our document in their environment. I record. Designing tutorials. Before we start designing any tutorial, we have to have knowledge about how tutorials work and when the user needs them. لازم نعرف هذول الشغلتين قبل ما نبلش بعملية designing tutorials. Also, we need to know, not all the time users want tutorials. They might need different types of document. So not all documentation sets contain tutorials. We should know when to use this form of documentation and when to apply the others. فالسؤال now, when to use tutorials. متى بنحتاج لهذا النوع من الدوكيومنت اللي هو التوتوريالز. The following 3 slides will help you make the decision by examining some of the basic elements of the tutorial. We talked in the previous slide about the basic elements for any tutorial. The first element is intention to teach. With tutorials, you want the user to gain familiarity with skills and remember them to perform tasks later from their memory. That means documentation like this operates on a teaching level of task orientation, which means you must create a close relation between the persona of the writer and the reader. So a relation between a writer and the reader, which will be like teacher and a student or teacher and reader. So this kind of documentation limits the user awareness to one way, one option, and one skill, and this will take a great deal of control and structuring of the user's interaction with the material. فهذا بيعمل limitation للawareness and the interaction with the user and the document. The second element of the tutorials is selectivity in choosing material. You know that you cannot teach all functions of the program. If we want to do that, we might need or many books in order to explain all the menu functions of the program. The need for selectivity means you must know your user well and which essential tasks need learning and which do not. So you select the essential ones. المقصود هون انه حتى ما بنقدر احنا نحط كل functions of the program in our document. If we want to do that, that will take many books to explain all the functions. عشان هيك بنحاول نعمل good study or good analysis لليوزر تبعنا ونحاول نشوف ايش essential tasks that we cannot or that we need to include in our document. The user analysis will be like this. We start with all users, then we go to potential users, then the user type. That means, for example, إنه all user ممكن نوصفهم على إنهم all HU students. Potential users might be software or IT students. User type that we want to use, for example, هم first year students. Then when we go to the first year student, what kind of usual scenarios they do? ايش السيناريوز اللي بيستخدموا السوفتوير لهم. Then after that we might go finally to use ايش typical use scenarios. typical user scenarios غالبا بتشكل essential tasks, essential features that the users use when they deal with their software. Third element of the tutorial is standalone design. The user only have the tutorial section to rely on to learn a program. So no teacher or advisor to talk to. So the document has to do the work of this. المقصود إنه the only thing that the user will depend on to learn about the software will be the tutorial. فالتوتوريال هو عبارة عن teacher، هو عبارة عن advisor، هو عبارة عن textbook، هو عبارة عن lectures. Everything will be like, depending on the tutorial. Such self-instructional documentation should take the place of, as we said, a teacher, a textbook, a workbook, a lectures, the questions, and an answer session. The tutorial section of the manual becomes the teaching environment. فهو the only teacher or the only reference for the user of the software. This chapter introduces two trends in tutorial design. That means two approaches we use when we design our tutorial. First approach اللي هي elaborative approach, والsecond اللي هي minimalist approach. The next two slides will talk about those two approach in detail. First approach, the elaborative approach. Some researchers suggest that elaboration, like explanations, examples, summaries, and articulations of goals and objectives, help to improve intention of skills in software manuals. المقصود إنه in order to make the user maintain focus and remember information الموجودة بالtutorials، الأفضل things أو من أفضل الأشياء اللي ممكن نستخدمها اللي هي explanations, examples, summaries, and articulations. The elaborative approach helps novice to intermediate users. Research has shown that elaboration helps users to apply their learning to real-world situations. Elaboration helps when learning complex and abstract information, and also when the user encountering basic information for the first time. This approach should always be used with novice learners. The second approach is the minimalist approach. Users of computer manuals like to get started right away and will resist reading information, design, and introduce or orient. For example, المقصود بالمينيمالist approach إنه people who adopt this approach بيحكوا إنه الكمبيوتر manual readers غالبا they try to skip reading information, introduction, overview about the software. For those people are the advanced people. Users will rarely read the introduction to the manual. From this, we can guess that this kind of minimalist approach is preferred by advanced and expert users. Users like this to create their own perspective on their training. Users like to take charge of situation.